T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Long time no see, I'm the Space Centric. It's been a while since I last posted. For you keen-eyed channel members, I haven't posted since the end of Summer of Spaceflight, or therefore the lack of it, since right after I posted the trailer for that, I lost all my footage, and I still haven't recovered all of it. I still have many files missing, but I'm still in the process of trying to remake them. And the only issue is I'm currently going into my junior year of high school, and it's a lot. That and also being a state officer for Technology Student Association here in the great state of Oklahoma. So, I profusely apologize for not being able to post since better part of a year now, but recently I was creating a podcast with an editor of the channel, Siven Panda, the Everyday Engineers podcast. We talked about every other week about recent spaceflight topics and tech topics that are prevalent in the industry, AI, a bunch of SLS and SpaceX things, but we also haven't been posting on that a lot because he's going to college soon. So we're sort of kind of two of the most busiest people right now. But I was recently on another podcast with SpeakOut, Speech and Debate with Ariel Fader, their CEO and founder. So please give us a watch and a listen on there, and I'll let you guys get to it.
Excited to have Derek here on the podcast with me. Derek is a rising junior and currently serves as the 2023-2024 Oklahoma Technology Student Association State Secretary. Outside of his academics, he runs an educational YouTube channel called Simplified Space that breaks down complex aerospace topics into an easy-to-understand format for everyone to understand, and co-hosts the Everyday Engineers podcast, which is an educational podcast talking about the latest in space and tech. So first of all, thank you so much, Derek, for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm an hour behind you, but I have reminders, and that's the only thing that keeps me going is my iPad in front of me that goes off periodically saying, hey, you're supposed to do this in an hour.
Literally same, except sometimes those reminders don't work, but that's another issue.
That's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Oh, literally. But speaking of like issues, I mean, I know you're very much comfortable with public speaking now, but did you ever start out with having an issue with that? Like, were you always comfortable with public speaking?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think I fall into about the majority of everybody where we started out as, shy. We didn't want to go up and talk in front of the class. And it was especially worse for me because, as a kid, I wasn't really, allowed to be outside much. I was more of like a stay-at-home kid. My mom and dad took care after me. And when I'm going into school at a young age, I'm not really like engaging with other kids, talking to other people and making friends. So it was especially hard for me with public speaking, especially my first, few like tastes of it, because I never wanted to be like up in front of the class talking. I didn't want to put myself out there. And it was a bit of embarrassment in there because but when I'm like 6, I didn't understand the difference between English and Vietnamese and the fact that those are two different languages. So I would always be a bit embarrassed behind knowing like, oh, why aren't they understanding me? If they don't understand me, I guess I'll just, be quiet and hang back a bit.
I see. And I think that's something that a lot of bilingual kids can relate to, just especially when you're growing up in a household that, of course, is very diverse. And I think that helps in
Absolutely.
the long run. But sometimes that can cause like some issues for you, especially with speaking and public speaking at a young age. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So what was your first public speaking experience?
I can't put exactly to terms like by literal definition being talking in front of a live audience. I don't remember when that was specifically, but I can talk about like the first public speaking experience that really, that really changed my perspective about public speaking. So it was about like 7th grade. I'm in my geography class.
By this point, I've done a couple of presentations. I didn't really mind doing them by this point in time. It's just I would rather choose not to do it if I had the chance. So we were going into our unit. It was our first unit of the year, and we were going through Europe first as a region. And each of us were assigned one country to research. And we had to research the culture, the history of it, and national days, holidays, and how all of that worked. And I randomly got assigned France. Bit of a connection there, since I'm Vietnamese. So I kind of put a little bit more of my heart into it. And for the first time, I really put down thought into how I was going to present it. My teacher was a veteran in the Air Force. She used to be a mechanic on the B-2 Spirit bombers. But she also had a lot of experience with public speaking. And she gave the class tips. She said, use note cards, and stand out. So for the first time, I actually started putting thought beyond just going up to a smartboard and looking at a screen and reading off what I had on my presentation. Put down note cards, put my own little quips and notes in there. And I actually incorporated for the first time crowd interaction. I asked questions to my peers in the middle of the presentation and gave them a bit more engagement. And that's what really changed it, because it was me, myself, being able to put more effort into my own presentation, make it what I wanted it to be rather than just reading off a screen. And also for the first time, receiving constructive feedback. My teacher was able to take me after class and say, that was excellent. That's what all presentations should be like. You're looking at the crowd the entire time, et cetera, et cetera. And also my peers were able to come back to me themselves and say, hey, that was really good, man. Whenever we're doing this for like Africa next, I'm going to try to use some of that. You mind giving me some pointers? And that, I think, although not my real first public speaking experience, it was the first experience that changed like everything I used to think about public speaking.
But yeah, I really love how you brought up that example, because I think especially that last part where you mentioned how other people started coming up to you and then saying that they wanted to also include aspects of your performance into theirs.
Yes,
That's a lot of what public speaking is learning from other people and
absolutely.
trying to like mix and match and develop your own style from that. So on top of that, like I guess when you're up there, how exactly do you overcome the fear? At least I assume that you weren't exactly comfortable being up there.
I mean, of course I wasn't comfortable. I mean, but like overcoming the fear overcoming the fear in general versus overcoming the fear on stage. So overcoming the fear in general, my honest answer is I don't know. It just came to me one day and I just got way more comfortable with it. But overcoming the fear on stage, what really changed it for me, and what like helped me overcome that fear, was actually some very recent advice I got from a mentor in the Eastern region. He said, you're on stage, you're reading off your script, you're reading off your speech, whatever you're doing. You and your team know exactly what you have to read, what exactly you have to do. And if you don't do that, only you and your team know what you did wrong. Your audience, you have to put yourselves in the shoes of your audience. They don't know the exact script you have. They don't know the exact intention that you have. All they are trying to do is get a message from what you're trying to like convey. And as long as they get that, that's your real goal of the speech. That's your real goal of reciting that script and doing public speaking. If you stutter just a little bit, if you have to improv in the middle of it to where it's not exactly by script anymore, they won't know that. And also treat it like a conversation. Because again, if it's the difference between you going up on stage and giving an elevator speech of some sort or giving a keynote versus you just talking to them, having that crowd interaction, like I mentioned before, that's what really sets you apart from realizing it's not you getting on stage to speak in front of hundreds, thousands of people. It's you getting on stage to just talk to them. And they won't know if you're messing up. And all they know is, you're my speaker. You're supposed to be conveying something to me, and I'm trying to like capture that. So really, for the first time, hearing that was really what helped me overcome my fear. Like I would say totally, because now I can go on stage and no longer really be nervous by the fact that I could mess up. Well, I can. They just won't know.
Exactly. And I think that's a lot of campaigning, just having to go up there giving those like candidacy speeches, as you have done before, and just having to trust in yourself and understand that even if you mess up a little bit, like that doesn't shatter everyone's expectations of you. So on that note, why exactly did you decide to run for these offices and start to campaign and kind of get into the more political side of TSA? Because even though it's a STEM organization, I feel that that element of civic engagement is very much part of it.
Absolutely. If you were to ask me, let me see. Let me do the math. I'm gonna be a junior, so if you asked me 4 or 5 years ago why I decided to run for TSA and do any office at all was because I wanted to help my middle school advisor found a chapter at the middle school. You asked me the following year, it's because I wanted to rebuild the high school chapter that got put down because of COVID. Okay, and then you wouldn't ask me the year after that, it's because, oh well, I'm more comfortable with myself. I want to put my skills to use. Now that I'm more comfortable with public speaking, I have more officer skills behind me. I want to put those skills to use more than just locally at my chapter. But if you really ask me now, and my honest answer to why I wanted to run for those positions is because I wanted to do more than just represent my skill set. I wanted to represent the members of the organization, and I wanted to represent like humanity and the human spirit as a whole, our determination and perseverance, and ultimately to inspire. Because I feel like when you step up on any stage, you have always, and no matter who you are, what background you come from, you have that duty to inspire, because you never know like who in the crowd needed to see you on stage and realize I can do that too. Or just not even going for them to go up on stage one day, for them to get their own confidence booster in their own lives. And that really hit home recently when a graduate friend of mine from another district, whenever I texted her, happy graduation, she texted me back and she was like, genuinely from the bottom of my heart, thank you for continuing to run for office. And I said, why? Because, that was just such an off jarring experience. I was trying to, congratulate her. And she said, if you didn't run for office, I would have met you. We wouldn't have become friends. And also, you running for office, you running for office inspired me to do more. I wanted to quit TSA. I didn't want to continue doing it because I was a senior. I had so much on my hands. I had other organizations I wanted to put time into, but I still put some time towards TSA. And I took what you did in your campaign and applied that to all my other organizations and realized that, even though I can't pursue the college of my dreams, I'm still putting in 100% effort every single time, but also knowing when to take those breaks from putting in 100% effort. And that's really when it really hit home for me why I decided to run, because I didn't know that friend I met 2 years ago would end up coming to me and saying, if you didn't run, I wouldn't be here. If you didn't run, I would not be succeeding to where I would be today.
Very, very true. And it's interesting sometimes how you look back and just see all the pieces that fall into place. And it's almost like, is fate real sometimes?
Right.
No, but I really love that story. That's really heartwarming. And I mean, Oklahoma is really lucky to have you as a state officer. And yeah, again, continue to run. I think that's the sentiment here. And to anyone listening, like whether you're an FBLA, DECA, or TSA as well, it's really important to, if you have a vision, to go out and run. Especially if you've been involved in those organizations for a long time and have something to offer. So along with that, how important is public speaking with campaigning? I'd say not just when you're giving your speeches, but also like in all the other aspects. Like I know there's meet and greets and different things like that.
I mean, I think the answer is obvious. It's 100% mandatory. You need to have public speaking incorporated in any part of a campaign. And like you said, beyond your speech, you need to know how to, connect with people, networking, as we like to call it. And it's very important to do that because your campaign is essentially a fancy way of saying, come talk to me, come connect with me, come share your ideas with me and I'll share my ideas with you, and we can connect over that. We can bond over that. And if you don't have, the conversational skills, the public speaking skills to do that, you won't be able to connect with your peers, your audience, and that's going to directly correlate to what they think of you, how an election could turn out, how a bill could be processed. So in the end, having that public speaking, it's very important. Like I said, 100% mandatory. And again, it's just a conversation. Like, I say public speaking skills, it just means I'm able to project myself, like who I am now with you, to just everybody else. Just take, the normal experience of maybe just texting your best friend and maybe taking the slang out of it. And that's public speaking. It's not like a skill you have to incredibly pick up on your own. Watch, hours of a master class for it. You just gotta, realize it's something you already have, especially if you have many close friends. You just gotta, take a step back and realize, take the slang out, and it's all of a sudden you're just connecting with someone. Now apply that to hundreds and thousands of people.
Definitely. And do you keep up with politics at all, whether that's locally or nationally? And has that had any impact on how you campaign?
I mean, yes and no. Whenever it's like more recent politics, I try to keep up. I feel like it's a duty for all of us to, keep up. And as the incoming generation,
Definitely.
we have to be focused on, what's going on in the world. But I don't keep up as much as I definitely should be. But I definitely did research a lot of past politics. I'm like a major history nerd, so I read a bunch of books, did a bunch of documentaries about past politics. As weird as it may sound, how did dictators rise to power? What did they do to get someone that we think is obviously so crazy to get up in a point of power anyway? So I can't really say I don't keep up with it, like local and national politics now, but I definitely understand what's going on behind the scenes of beyond of just saying we're going to pass a bill. And to answer your other question, does it help with campaigning at all? Yes and no, especially the study of it. Yes, because you can apply what people did right. Like you said, public speaking is learning from each other, applying what others did right to what you're doing. But also a bit no, because you have to have that conscience of choosing what worked for them may not work for you. And I think it's a lot of the times that what people struggle with is they overcome the fear of public speaking. And then as soon as they overcome the fear, they have the confidence in themselves. And they immediately try to emulate their public speaking from someone else 100%, or take as much inspiration as they can. And that doesn't really take out the raw skill that you have. If your style is more relaxed and calm with some professionalism in there, embrace that. I mean, if that's what you're 100% good at, go for it. Don't try and make yourself sound so professional to the point where you're having to actually study your outline intensely, study your script intently, to the point where you have to be someone different than what you want to be.
Literally. Yeah, I think that is such a big part of campaigning, and you hear it all the time, like, oh, just be you. But
Mm-hmm.
I think there definitely is a difference when it comes on the stage. Like when you're up there, when you're giving your candidacy speech, when you're out and doing those meet and greets, you can really tell the difference between students who are perhaps trying to emulate a certain persona, thinking that it will get them farther, and students who are just genuinely themselves. And I
Absolutely.
don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with trying to better yourself or trying to emulate
No,
someone that you
absolutely
admire.
not.
But when that becomes overbearing and it clouds like your actual personality, that's
Yes.
where I think you should draw the line. Um, so outside of that, do you think there is any intersection between STEM and politics? Since I feel like normally people don't quite think that there is an intersection, but I mean, you're very much into STEM and you love history at the same time. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I mean, yes, absolutely. There's an intersection between STEM and politics, between politics and absolutely anything, honestly. On the educational side, there's obviously the STEM programs and funding and all of that. TSA, DECA, all of the CTSOs, all of our career tech student organizations, we need funding. the trade school I go to, Canadian Valley Technology Center, they need government funds to keep that place alive and going, to be able to teach welding, the pre-engineering program, the biomed program, just going. But it's also relevant beyond educational STEM. Again, I'm part of Simplified Space. I founded that. It's about breaking down complex aerospace topics into simpler, like easier ways for people to understand. And aerospace is a really great example of an intersection between STEM and politics. For a rocket to launch, essentially, right? You can't just, most of the time, for a rocket company to be successful, you don't want to just launch a rocket with nothing on it. You want a satellite, you want cargo on there, you want humans on there, whatever you need to. And that comes with contracts. That comes with certification from government and government agencies to have humans on board, for you to fly within United States borders, for you to fly within the EU, fly within Russia, China. You have to have those military or government backings for you to fly, or what to put on there. And a great example of that is with the military contracts that happened in the United States within the past 20 years. So in about the past 20, 30, 40 years, basically since the founding of NASA and like Apollo and the Apollo era and all of that, right? All the military launches were exclusively for Boeing and what Lockheed Martin and what eventually became when they merged into the United Launch Alliance. But now with the emergence of SpaceX about like 15 years ago, a huge chunk of those military contracts have shifted away from the United Launch Alliance into SpaceX, a private company in the private sector. And that is the shift right there, and the intersection between STEM and politics. Somebody had the faith to say, I think the private sector can pick up with some of our military contracts, some of our multi-million, multi-billion-dollar projects, and launch them into space beyond the government contractors we already have. And an even better example of that is the Cold War and the space race. The United States wanted to continually innovate, purely because the Soviet Union was trying to innovate, and we're trying to go better than them, and they're trying to go better than us. And the space race specifically, because NASA had an unlimited budget back in the day. Basically, they could spend as much money as they wanted to. The only caveat is, as long as you get us to the moon, as long as you do better than the Soviet space program, we'll pour money into you. So both sides, again, constantly to innovate now, do each other. First man into space, first organism into space, first satellite in orbit, first man on the moon, first rover on the moon. That's all that happened because of the Cold War. But as soon as the Soviet Union dissolved, the NASA's budget immediately decreased, and they've been facing budget cuts and budget issues ever since. So again, that's a perfect example between STEM and politics, because in a way, we wouldn't have NASA if it weren't for the Cold War.
Very much so. And I like how you bring up all those examples, because not a lot of people perhaps are educated on those and or see the connection in between them. So I really like how you brought those up. And on top of that, like, why exactly did you decide to start Simplified Space? Like, I know you mentioned that like just earlier, and that in your podcast, like, what incentivized you to go farther than just, participating in these STEM activities and trying to start something new?
I definitely would have to say because of passion. I took direct inspiration for that channel from the Everyday Astronaut, Tim Dodd. And what really inspired me from that was he's just an ordinary dude, went on eBay, got in an auction, got a random spacesuit, put it on, started calling himself the Everyday Astronaut. And now he's one of the most renowned people in the space community, even enough to actually influence the design of some aerospace companies that are taking right now. And that really changed my perspective, because he comes from a middle of nowhere town in the United States, I think like Iowa or Idaho. And, me coming from a small town, I'm like, whoa, I can have that impact. So me knowing that even though I'm still learning and growing about aerospace every single day, having that channel to really channel my passion it may not always be factually right, but it's always that inspiration I'm driving for. It's that little note that someone might say, oh, he's doing that, and he's like 16. I'm only like 12, but I definitely can do that. I can do that. I have a phone. I can definitely do that. And it's really inspiring whenever I get my friends to tell me, hey, my little sister just started a channel and she was inspired by watching all your videos. And I'm like, that's crazy. So yeah, it's all passion. It's all that passion and wanting to really be the point for someone to be inspired from.
Got it. And I really like how you have started those because I think it brings up a really great point on how it is very accessible. And we need people to kind of inspire other students to do that. So I really love that those are some initiatives that you started. And on top of that, I also like how that's just another example of how intertwined I think public speaking is and politics is with all of these other areas and how you've transferred those skills to not only do it like directly in person, but also virtually through these avenues and still share the same message. So, in an era where AI is becoming increasingly present and there's like a lot of fears surrounding that, especially when you can just have ChatGPT just write an entire speech for you, does being original with your speeches even really matter anymore, do you think?
Absolutely. It's ironic, even because I was messing with it last night with a couple of friends. We were just throwing random prompts in there, and oh, that was an experience. But yes, absolutely, being original with your speeches matter. I mean, it's great having AI. It's great having ChatGPT to assist you in making those speeches. I mean, having text to speech, especially on my Google Pixel, that saves me so much when I'm in the middle of class and I'm like, hey, XYZ, and it'll actually understand my tone and be like, oh, you want this punctuation to go with it because I was in an inquisitive tone. So yes, it's great having tools like AI tools and ChatGPT to assist you in making a speech, but you have to be original with the speeches that you make because again, it's you. People are trying to make the connection with you on stage, not like this random script that ChatGPT threw up to you. Again, a speech is a conversation. Any sort of public speaking is a conversation, and you want to connect with your audience. But and if you don't connect, right, you won't be as effective like connecting or talking to somebody compared to someone who can. And I have a story about that actually. That's very, very related to campaign and making a speech. A friend way back before I ran for office prompted ChatGPT to write a speech for my campaign, and I wanted it to be like space themed this year. So it was like write a speech for a guy named Derek Pham running for state office in the Oklahoma Technology Student Association. And I'm like, have fun with that. It's not going to get anything near what I wanted to say, anyways. And kid you not, that sounded so similar to eventually what I was going to say. I didn't take any inspiration from it, I swear. Didn't take any inspiration, but it sounded so incredibly similar to my speaking style. And that's when it really hit home and we're like, yeah, I have to be kind of unique with my speech because if ChatGPT can somehow scour the internet and figure out my speaking style, yeah, I definitely have to be unique so that people can't just throw my name in ChatGPT anymore.
Literally. That's really funny. And I don't know, it's a little scary, but at the same time, I think it also just shows like how much possibility there is.
Absolutely.
And it also shows like, yeah, you do have to be original and people can tell, especially now with all these other things that are coming out where you can like cross-check ChatGPT
Mhm.
and all these AI platforms. So especially when you're writing a speech, like you're not going to win like rounds in speech and debate or even like campaigns if you're not
Absolutely.
doing the work yourself. So, are there any improvements that you think should be made in teaching students about public speaking skills or even about how to alleviate that fear? Especially since I personally think that those teachings have kind of gone out the window ever since the pandemic, since we never really got any chances to do presentations or things like that
Mhm.
simply because of those circumstances.
Um, see, a big improvement that I definitely think that should be made is really giving more constructive feedback to students when they present or just any sort of public speaking, but also for each person to have a supporter. that was like my biggest thing, getting comfortable with public speaking. Again, having that first time getting the feedback was really great. But you can always have that first experience with great feedback and never continue it. And my middle school advisor was really great about supporting me through all of that. I originally ran for chapter president when I was trying to found the chapter, ended up getting chapter VP because he ended up setting up to where like 8th grade is the president and 7th grade is the VP, and then income will be the incoming president the next year. But beyond that, he also gave me, I think, my 5th day ever in TSA, or like in the first few weeks, he gave me a PDF from OKTSA that said top 10 tips on how to be a great regional and or state officer. And I looked at him and I said, you are crazy. I am never doing that. I am going to do like local chapter office. I'll be the president of the high school for 4 years if I have to. I am not going on stage at all. He got the last laugh every time I see him now. He always makes sure to brings that up. But it's as much as like as a fun story that is, it's really what pushed me to go on stage and put myself beyond the local chapter level, because I had that supporter who looked at me and said, you know, you're capable of doing this. I see inside you what you don't even see inside yourself yet. And having that someone to tell you that or make you realize that, that's really that's the best thing anybody could do to improve like teaching public speaking. Being that supporter, giving you that confidence that you don't even have in yourself yet. That's what's going to change your perspective. That's what's going to make you go up on stage every single time, happy, content, confident, ready to like hit the world head first.
Yeah.
And there's something on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, practicing by yourself also. Having that, again, once you gotten that feedback, once you have your supporter, practice yourself. Okay. Practice by yourself with let's say you're doing a presentation. Practice your presentation first by yourself. Okay. Then present with your close friends. They're going to be if you don't have that one supporter, they're obviously your most closest supporters in your lives, whether that be your parents, any trusted adult you have, or your close friends. They're going to come to you and you'll be able to present, and they'll look at you like they'll give you feedback, but they'll also put faith in the person who you are, knowing that the presentation you provide will maybe not be perfect, but it's the best effort you just put towards, and they can give you, some back on that. And then again, go into your like one supporter, that one that has, maybe public speaking experience or did a bunch of it before, or, has faith in you, doing it that one last time to them. Then that's like the whole cycle completed. You've been able to practice by yourself. You can put confidence into yourself. Then you did it with your friends, your family, and they're like, that's great. I'm so glad you're able to do this. It looks great. I can't really give you much more than support, but you did a great job conveying your point. Then you go to your like main supporter, and they'll be able to give you even more specific feedback saying that was great, but in the middle of the speech or in the middle of the presentation, I kind of got bored a bit. I'm not gonna lie. So maybe incorporate some crowd interaction to help lighten up the mood a bit.
Right. Support is so, so important. And I think something that not a lot of people might understand at first is how half of that is also like taking all the criticism, like all the uncomfortable parts. Like support
Absolutely.
is not all feel good. Like you're going to feel
Yes.
embarrassed at times, but it's okay because if you feel embarrassed while you're practicing, then you're not going to feel embarrassed once you get on stage because you'll already have fixed all those spots.
Again, it's just a conversation. You're just taking for what you just talked to yourself, not talking to your own crowd. And I mean, if you really are that afraid of like speaking or like having that stage fright, before you get on stage, before you go present in front of your classmates, as cliche as it sounds, give yourself a pep talk. Give yourself a pep talk, because again, it's cliche, but saying what you need to hear really has a huge impact on you, and it's a lot different than just saying it in your head. I know at the past state conference where I campaigned, we had a tornado warning, and I was already in the mood, just like zoned in, ready to go on stage, present. And then 30 minutes before opening session began, got a tornado warning. Everyone had to go down. So I immediately had a transition from I'm Derek. I'm ready to get on stage to go like give my campaign speech. To I'm Derek. I got to make sure to go down the stairs in a safe, fashionably manner, and make sure other people are being safe at the exact same time. Take charge of my chapter. Since my advisor is already in the ballroom, I have to take charge and make sure everyone's there. So I needed that pep talk before I got on stage to say like, hey, you just probably went through a near-death experience. Chill. Take some breathers. You just went through a near-death experience. Now put yourself back to the mindset of what you need to be on stage. You've spent months practicing this speech. You've practiced in front of your advisor. You've practiced in front of your friends. You've done it in front of your past middle school advisor who still laughs at you every single time you try to go up on stage. That hearing those normal conversation like talks to yourself, it really like calms you down and puts you back in the perspective of where you need to be. And again, you only do what you know is right and what you know is wrong. No one's going to know what you end up screwing up on or saying what you did not intend to say. As long as you conveyed your point, they'll understand that, and you don't ever know that you did something wrong.
So true. Especially that last part where you just have to like trust in yourself and know that, hey, if you just keep chugging forward, like no one's going to know that you made a mistake. Um, and I really like how you bring up this idea of a pep talk, since I think half the battle is mental. You have to prep yourself to be on there, because if you don't believe in yourself, how is anyone else going to do so? And if you could describe your entire public speaking journey in just one word or phrase, what do you think that would be?
These kind of questions for me are just so hard to just like describe your experience in one word. I'm like, I kind of can't do that. That's like, maybe half an autobiography, half a biography for me to explain that one question. But I would say go up into the phrase of you can't force a dog to walk on two legs, right? You can't be someone that you're not meant to be. You can't have the style you're not meant to have, right? And this is a long process. I had to learn my style of speaking through, 4 or 5 years of doing it, transitioning from a local public speaking to now you're representing your region and your state. Now you have to go network with people from across the nation, internationally, even. So knowing that it's one, I can't force myself to be what I want, maybe what I have to be, but forcing myself to realize that I have a unique set of skills. I'm able to connect with people, joke with them a bit, but also be very professional, being someone that can keep people accountable, and also being able to, support somebody in their dream and inspire them. Recognizing that is what helped me realize that, oh, if I embrace this is what's really going to make or break my public speaking journey. And in the end, I mean, just embrace who you are, embrace the skills that you have, and use them effectively and creatively to share your ideas, and most importantly, inspire others. And my personal favorite, connecting and making new friends, meeting new people. And you never really know that one thing you say could turn into a lifelong friendship or an inspiration for someone to continue inspiring others.
Definitely. And I think that's something that I always end up repeating, but I still repeat it because it's important. Like, no matter what competition you're in, what you're campaigning for, like, it's really the people that make all of it possible, and that's what makes it matter. And I think speaking is just the best way to kind of get your ideas across to everyone. And it's when you get down from that podium, I know from personal experience, and I'm sure that you've had this experience as well, where when you step down and you're just going about your business, people will come up to you and they'll kind of compliment you on things that you said or things that they liked about what you're trying to campaign for. So I think those are just the best experiences, like just getting to meet all these people and making those friendships. Great tips, Derek. Thank you so much for joining me today and giving me some insight into the world of TSA and campaigning and kind of how STEM and politics are really intertwined. So, again, thank you for being on here and good luck on all of your future adventures and campaigns.